360 Radio.
So welcome in the producer of the Jim Rome Show.
Hi, this is Jason Stewart with the Jim Rome Show.
Hey, this is Vic Chaser from The Chronicle, and you're listening to Salty and Josh at West 360 Radio.
Cue the music. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, they're a bunch of grannies anyways, especially that old giraffe that they have playing quarterback.
His name is Michael. He runs a website called Madden Maniac. How you doing tonight, man?
Excellent. How are you?
Doing well, doing well.
Oh, I'm gonna smoke him.
All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them.
What do we have? I gotta pee.
Bleed Green, how you doing this evening?
Doing great, man. How are you?
It's about the mistakes we make. It's about how we react.
Your mind will either be blown by awesome commentary, not from us, but from some of the guests that we pull on the show, or it'll be blown from this natural stupidity that flows from our mouth when you put a couple of microphones in front of some Degos. You know what I'm saying?
The one and only Cobra.
Hey, it's Cobra. What's going on?
Again, you guys do your homework.
There are tens of listeners. Tens.
By the way, you both got great voices.
I think I'm going to change my name to Sonny White.
How's it going, gentlemen?
My Little Pony, friendship is magic.
What's wrong with My Little Pony? I've watched My Little Pony numerous times.
This is Larry Stone from Titans Radio. You're tuned to West 360 Radio with Salty and Josh.
Welcome once again to, it's not West 360 Radio anymore. It's West One Radio. That's right. Replace the O-N-E with a 360, and you've got what we've going on here tonight. That's right. It's West One Radio. Here back in the Dago Dungeon South. I'm your host, Murph. I'll be with you tonight. Call me the Raider Gamer. I handle the Oakland Raiders in our fine West One League. But I also have someone riding shotgun with me tonight via the telephone, and that is Alan, Execution 99, handles the 49ers for us in our West One League. Alan, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a new day, Alan. We have a new console that has come out, and while we had a ported version of the previous Madden game that came over to the Xbox One, this is now the first game that's been developed exclusively for the new console, the next generation console. I'm excited. It's Madden season, Alan, and to go along with it, we have a brand new name to our league. We've settled on West One. So now here in the Dago Dungeon, it is West One Radio, WOR. Alan, let's go to war.
Well, you know, if we're going to have a new console and a new show and a new name for the show, I kind of feel like we need a new intro for it, too, because I don't think the show's being hosted by Sonny and Josh anymore. You know, if I'm going to be on the show, maybe we should have an intro for me now, too. I feel my inner diva kicking in.
Well, and we may have to come up with some special music for you. You know, we blessed you with the Run DMC song last time we did a radio show of You Talk Too Much, and I thought that was rather fitting. But yes, you're right. We do need to get some new intros put together, and I believe we have one of the members of our league who is a musician, DJ. He's working on some stuff for us, so we'll be looking forward to seeing what he has to come up with. I'm a little bit of an audiophile myself. I like to put together some fun stuff, but just haven't had the time yet as we're kind of settling in to this new Madden thing, so in this new season. And so anyways, all that said, we will have that up and going soon, but the first step was to get the league named. The first step was to, you know, what were we going to go from? We couldn't use West 360 anymore. We had to take the next step, and I thought West One was an excellent choice for Salty to have come up with that for the league. And, you know, frankly, it's fitting. And I think the same reasons that they chose to name the new console One is because it's number one. It's the best, right? And you can't name it 361. You can't name it the Xbox 2. So go with Xbox One. So here we are with West One.
Well, you know, and I'm just glad that I don't think anybody strained too many brain muscles coming up with that name. So
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what a couple of Dagos contemplate at 2:00 in the morning. You know what I mean? Trying to figure out what to name a Madden league. You know,
well,
and listen, and no one's ever accused Salty of making a rash decision. You want to talk about flip-flop? Oh my goodness, this guy goes back and forth like crazy. Last time I heard, he was buying a PS4 and was going to start a MLB The Show league.
Guy doesn't have enough time for one league, and talks about how the systems don't have anything going on anymore, and he's getting too old for it. But he's going to buy them all up and start all the leagues anyway.
He's going to buy them all up. There you go. Yeah. So next thing you know, we'll be having a Mario Kart league too. You know. And I'm starting a Peggle league. Y'all think I'm kidding about Peggle 2 multiplayer? Download that thing. The guys that have done that, and we're going to get to the EA early access here in a little bit. I'm telling you, that Peggle 2. It's probably because there's not really much else to play right now, but dang, Peggle 2 is fun, man.
There's not much else to play right now.
There's not much else to play. All right, well,
we got to keep this in context.
Let's keep it in context. Let's not. We'll do the Peggle 2 League show at a later date, okay? But anyways, let's go ahead and get started here. Alan, we talked about it here at the top. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things changing. And with that, we've also made some changes within our league. But as long-term Madden gamers know, the game changes every year. And sometimes the changes are for the good. Sometimes are the changes for the not so good. Vision cone. But I think that the things that we've seen early on from this Madden game are pretty solid. Also, we've seen the way that the game is the cover athlete is chosen has changed. We've seen the whole marketing behind the game has changed. And again, some for good, some for bad. I didn't really care about the way that the cover was handled this year. But one of the things that I am absolutely in love with is the way that they've started off the marketing campaign for Madden 15. And that's with the Madden season commercial. And we all know, and all seen it at this point, with Kevin Hart leading it off by knocking on the door of his buddy's house and slapping him as he shows up, and it kicks off a very elaborate video with a lot of different athletes, a lot of different spoofs on different types of singers and rappers, and I just love it. It's phenomenal. The first time I watched it was with my wife, who is not a gamer, and even she was cracking up. She just got a big old kick out of it, and kind of the more times you watch it, the more you catch the little things, like Damian Lillard from the Portland Trailblazers showing up on the motorcycle and some other things. So what do you think about the Madden 15 commercial? It's pretty fun, no?
I saw a post about it on Facebook, which I forget what the exact headline was, but it was something like, this is either the greatest commercial of all time or the worst commercial of all time. And, it's I think it's great in how absurd it actually is, because you have the Kevin Hart thing, and that's great and everything, and then you have at the very end when he's talking about, your house is on fire, let it burn. That was the highlight of the commercial for me. But everything in between all that kind of didn't have anything to do with Madden whatsoever, but that's almost what made it great. So it was a good commercial in terms of it was great for how absurd it was.
But didn't you get the feeling that, at least my impression of it is that was Kevin Hart's way of talking junk? So it's like he goes through all this stuff, talking all this smack to the guy, and yet at the end, the guy, remember what his name is that guy an actor or something? I didn't recognize the guy.
I can't say I did either. Bad pop culture.
Like Franco or something. Here. Yeah, I don't know who he is. But anyways, but it's funny because it's like Kevin Hart does this big, huge, giant, elaborate thing, and then in the end, the guy's ready to go, and he takes off with, who was that, Kendall Hunter or somebody? You're a Niner fan. You know who he took off
Michael
with.
James.
There you go, Michael James scored that touchdown. So I liked it. I thought it was great. I thought it was good fun. And again, to go back to that Damian Lillard part, when he's got the guy's girlfriend on his motorcycle, but then he stalls it out when he takes off. I mean, that was pretty funny.
And see, I had a little bit of different take on it. To me, it wasn't so much the trash talking going through the commercial. I think it was, to me, what I took from it is that Madden is so ingrained into our pop culture now, and it's such a big deal when Madden comes out. I mean, you and I have been to Madden release events before at midnight, at GameStops, and we see how big of a deal that it is. It's called Madden Day, so to me, that's what it was, is that Madden is such a big deal now that we're just going to celebrate it, and it doesn't matter how we celebrate it. It's as absurd as it is, that's what it is, because it's Madden Day.
I take the day off work. I straight up take the day off work. You know that. I mean, and some of those midnight Madden times have been some of the most fun times I've had in a gaming scenario. That there's the whole community coming out and getting together at GameStop and playing on the displays, and everybody wears their jerseys and is talking junk, and it's a lot of fun. It's a good time. Now that's going to change a little bit this year, and that will take us on to kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about, is that EA's got the early access, or has this thing, what is it called? All Access or EA Access, I believe is what it is. And for $5 a month now, it's opened it up, and you got 4 games initially in this, quote, vault. And they're going to continue to add games into the vault as this program goes on, but they're never going to take anything out. So anything that's in the vault now is going to continue to be in the vault as we go forward. So right now we got Battlefield, Peggle, what are the others? Help me out here. I don't know. All I ever played was Peggle. FIFA, that stupid soccer game some of you guys are playing. Get over it. Soccer.
Some of them guys, don't include me in this. I don't do soccer.
Killing me with the dang soccer.
Do I look like K-Matt to you?
Do what?
I said, do I look like K-Matt to you?
Yeah, no. So anyway, so this thing, it's come out with these games, and I thought it was pretty cool that as they add in the games, they're not going to take anything out. Well, all right, so that takes us to, what's going to happen with the EA ticket? Because historically, you could pay, what was it, $15, $20, whatever it was, get EA ticket and get early access to the game. It was 2 or 3 days of access to Madden that you could download and you could play it prior to the game coming out, prior to the Madden release. Well, now, so now with this access, you're going to get a 5-day jump on the game. So not only is it with that, but then there's going to be no demo, which is fine, because usually the demo came out a week or 2 before anyways, so no big loss there. But I think it's interesting the way that EA has chosen to go this route this year, and I like it. I think it's a great idea to do this. I jumped on it right away, man. $5, it's $30 a year. And I mean, that's only a little bit more than it was for the whole EA ticket thing before. And you're getting all these other titles in, and they're titles that I never will play FIFA, even though it's free. But like Peggle 2, I never have played that. I never have bought Peggle 2. But guess what? I'm hooked on Peggle 2 until freaking Madden. That was freaking, by the way. Freaking Madden comes out. You know what I mean? So, what do you think, Alan? What do you think? No demo. Is it gonna hurt the midnight release? Is it gonna take away a lot of the fun that we've had in past years because it's not gonna be as big of a deal with the early release now?
Well, the first thing that I think is that your obsession with Peggle is bordering on like K-Matt WNBA status. So just putting that out there.
Don't hate on my Peggle, man.
But as far as this goes, honestly, right now, I don't think it's going to hurt the midnight release. Not in the short term. In the long term, it probably will, but less so because of EA Access, and more so because of what we're seeing, the trends that these companies are trying to push forward, even though they're not taking quite yet, but this shift from physical to digital media. And ultimately, I see that as being the bigger long-term side effect of this, is that things like this EA Access are going to be more of a shift towards digital media. Now, a lot of people like it. I have a lot of friends that are talking about digital media is the future, physical media is a thing of the past. But honestly, you can call me a little bit paranoid or whatever, but I like physical media, and I'm not a huge fan of this shift to digital media. I like having an actual disc. I like knowing that when I want to play a game, I can just pop it in and play, and I don't have to worry about someone else's server somewhere. So all in all, it's a nice idea. I have $5 a month. I haven't signed up for it yet, but I might. $5 a month is a pretty good deal for what you're getting out of it. But I'm hesitant about the long-term effects of this.
Well, it's interesting, and I'm with you on the physical media. I liked, really date myself here. I used to have albums. I still have a few record albums, and then I had a whole bunch of tapes. I'm a kid of the '70s and the '80s, and I had a whole bunch of tapes, and that was gotten completely obsolete, and they're long gone. Found the trash can. Then it was CDs, but then when everything went to digital media, man, it's so easy. It's so accessible. I mean, the access that we have to music now. I was in the car with my son earlier today, my youngest, and he was talking about the music on my phone, and I was trying to explain to him about how music used to be played on the radio and how you didn't have a choice. It was just whatever came. Anyways, it's completely a different way. It's a new day now. But I'm with you in it's nice to have something to touch and to hold, but it's going. Music is long gone. Movies are not far from it. I used to be a big movie collector, but only have a handful of movies now, just the big franchises that I love, like the Star Wars movies or Lord of the Rings or whatever. And it's more just like to have them as collectors, or, Blu-ray provides the highest quality of sound and visual. So you want to have the Blu-rays of those movies that you love. But now here we're getting to video games, okay? Unless you're a fanboy of that particular game and want to have that game, it's going the way of everything else, and it's going digital. It's going streaming. It's going downloadable content. And the accessibility and the ease of all that, I think, is awesome. I think it's really awesome. But all those other types of media stated, records, books, that stuff, video games is the last one that has a stores, the brick and mortar that can represent. It's it. It's the last bastion, at least to me. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of bookstores that are still up and going, and I think that's just because you can't take your iPad in the tub. When it comes to gaming, though, I like going to GameStop. I like going and talking to the guys. I like talking about games and what's coming out. Those guys are hip to a lot of stuff. Sometimes they'll hit me to a new game that's coming out. Something I never would have thought of playing, like WildStar. I thought my MMO days were long over, but one of the guys at my GameStop was all about WildStar and kind of not talked me into it, but he talked so fondly of it. I went out and got it, and I played it, and I like it. It's fun. I mean, once Madden comes out, I probably won't play it anymore. But anyways, all that said, that community I do like. I liked those days when we would go down to GameStop and play in a Madden tournament, the week of release. I liked going down there at midnight and picking up the games and all that kind of stuff. Well, I think all that's going away. I think all of it's going away, and whether we like it or not, it's just the way that it's going to be from here out,
Well, it is eventually going away, and I mean, there's going to come a day when all the games are digital media and you can't get a physical disc of any game anywhere, and by that time I'll probably be 45 and don't care about hanging out in line at midnight for a game anymore either. The part that I do agree with you on definitely is I used to work retail. I used to work at record stores and video game stores and all that stuff. So that might be a reason why I'm a little bit bitter, is because the shift to digital has put me out of a couple jobs that I was really fond of. I mean, granted, I'm past the whole retail stint in my life now and all that. But the one part that I think I disagree with you on, and this is weird coming from me who just gave my whole anti-digital rant, is I think digital makes me try a game that I otherwise wouldn't. You know my taste in games, and it's pretty picky when it comes to the games that I want to buy and play. But I think with the streaming, there's a lot of games, and I'm going to put a title out there that's going to be kind of odd as a game that I wouldn't be interested in, but BioShock. I'm not particularly interested in that franchise. The only reason why I ever bought the first BioShock was because I bought it on Xbox Live for $20. I'd never go down to Best Buy or to GameStop to buy BioShock, but because it was digital and I was bored one night, I downloaded it and I played it and I liked it and I enjoyed it. I'd never run out and buy a physical copy of a BioShock like I would of Skyrim or, any Elder Scrolls game or Madden or anything like that. But I do think that digital makes things more accessible that you wouldn't otherwise play. But that's me. I'm a little more picky. I'm not going to go to GameStop and be persuaded by someone telling me how great a game is because he wants to sell it to me either. So I'm picky in those regards.
Well, with the early access, as I mentioned, we have a 5-day head start, and so bringing it around to a little bit of WestOne Madden Football League, we've decided that we're going to do a 21-day league. When the game comes out, we're going to start it. We're going to mow through the preseason, by simming it out. And then we're going to start and we're going to play one game a day. We're going to have one advance a day. And in 21 days, we're going to get through, 21 days, we're going to get through a draft. We're going to get through an entire season, postseason, and Super Bowl just to kind of kick it off. Historically, we had what we call the Lone Wolf Tournament, where everybody that had the game would kind of jump in and play in this tournament just as a way to get used to those new features. And we're going to talk about the new features in Madden coming up here in a little bit. But just to kind of get the use of the pacing of the game, some of the new features, all that kind of stuff. But instead, we're going to do this 21-day league. This is the first time that we've done this. Salty, I thought, had a great idea in doing this because it kind of keeps everybody, instead of being invested in a tournament where you kind of play a game, takes time off, play a game, take time off. It keeps everybody invested fast and furious right from the start, and it kind of gives you a preview of your team. You know, typically it takes us months to progress through a Madden season. Well, now you're going to get through it in 3 weeks. You're going to get to see your team from week 1 to the end of the Super Bowl. You'll have a loose idea of how your players progressed, all that kind of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to the 21-day league. Alan, what do you think?
It's going to be an interesting concept. I was a fan of the Lone Wolves tournament myself last year. I felt that it was a good way to kind of get in and practice and warm up. This has other advantages in terms of, like you said, actually checking out a lot of the new features, because there's a lot of new features, not just on the field, but off the field with the connected franchise and stuff. So it'll definitely be interesting to be able to kind of get a taste of that beforehand. I think there's some maybe not major, but there's some definite minor negatives that can come with that, depending on how far we get in. People can start plotting out their first off season of free agency and all that right off the bat, because you already see who's going to hit the market, what kind of money that they're going to want. And so it kind of adds a little metagame aspect to it. And also, if we're doing an advance a day, I can definitely see a lot of games being simmed and not actually played human to human. So in terms of games played, it might end up being about the same as the Lone Wolves tournament anyways. But it's probably about 6 in one, half a dozen in the other, honestly.
Good. You're right. Or, we're going to miss we're going to have a lot of advances that are going to, guys aren't going to get their games in, and we understand that. And I think that it's just for the guys that can and want to get in there and do it. I just think it'll be well, I'm getting a text from our commissioner that says the 21-day league was said more in jest than anything. Well, guess what?
It's just been announced.
Just been announced. So guess what? Well, I guess the new tools that we have as far as advancements go, you can go ahead and click off a couple other guys to give them power to be able to advance the thing, Sonny. So it's went ahead and been announced. So anyways, all right. Well, let's move on to our next topic here. After the 21-day league, Alan, we said if we do this 21-day league that this will give us the ability to kind of check out some of the new features, some of the new enhancements coming to Madden 15. What do you think is going to be? I mean, there's a lot of different stuff. Okay, so we've heard a lot of the different things about the defense. There's a lot of different things in the connected franchise that's going to be different. We have the confidence versus the XP in your week to week. One's a slow build, one's to play for the now. Give me, what do you think is going to have the biggest impact on the gameplay? And then I want you to give me what you think is going to have the biggest impact on the franchise mode.
Well, as far as gameplay goes, I don't know if it's necessarily going to have the biggest gameplay change necessarily, but what I think has the biggest potential is the new quarterback accuracy that I've been reading about. And it seems like they want to make your actual quarterback's accuracy more important than just how far you can chuck it downfield, because that's been a thing in past Maddens, is that if you have a wide receiver who's fast and a quarterback who has high throw power, you have an offense. And you and I can testify to that back in the days when you had Johnny Lee Higgins and Jamarcus Russell.
And Dante Culpepper is his backup, both of them with 96 throw power. That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly, with Darren McFadden as a running back who was fast. That was what it amounted to. And I can say even as recently as Madden 13, when I took over the Niners that had already been gutted by the previous owner, and I had to take like some 6th-round quarterback as my starter, but he happened to have like a 98 throw power, and I drafted a wide receiver who had like 99 speed, even though they were collectively rated about 72 overall. I had a leading offense with them because all I did was chuck it downfield to my wide receiver who could outrun any defensive back. So I like the fact that quarterback accuracy is going to be more important in this, because in real life there's quarterbacks who are awesome who don't have high arm strength, Peyton Manning. What I'm worried about with that, though, is that I've noticed a trend in Madden where in order to kind of balance things, they overcorrect. And one thing that I can testify to is in one of my past franchise modes, and granted this was, a single-player franchise mode, I had an instance where I had a quarterback who did have low throw accuracy, and I had a wide receiver streaking down the right sideline, and I threw it to him, and the quarterback threw it to the left sideline because he had low accuracy. Typically in the NFL, bad accuracy means a wide receiver doesn't catch it in stride. He has to reach for it, or he has to dive for it, or it's just off his fingertips. Not that it's going completely in the opposite direction that you throw it to. So I'm hesitant to see how they find that balance in terms of making inaccurate quarterbacks inaccurate, but not overcorrecting it and making it so they just throw it into the 5th row.
Well, you brought up some great points there. I mean, absolutely. And, the couple of years ago when I ran the Titans, they had, of course, Jake Locker's got like a 93 throw power. And Chris Johnson with his blazing speed, one of the fastest guys in Madden. And, it was too easy to run a streak out of the backfield with Chris Johnson and have him just blow by every linebacker and safety that would get in his way and just lob it up there and just let him run underneath. And I think he had like a 70-something catch, but it didn't matter because it was just all about speed and it was all about arm strength like you're talking about. So I'm with you on the accuracy. I'm curious though, how they could implement the mechanics, though, to where it really is about accuracy because, like it or not, Madden is offensively has so much to do with timing. And the reason that the high throw power quarterbacks are so desirable is that when your receiver makes that cut, when your receiver, when you're reading that route, you can zip it in there and you can just, you just pop that ball in there so quick that before that defender has a chance to react to it. Where with the lower throw power guys, it's not so much throwing it, and it's very realistic actually. It's not so much how far you can throw it. I'm sure Peyton Manning could still throw it, 65 yards in the air, but when he's on the right hash mark, can he hit that deep out 20, 25 yards downfield on the all the way opposite side of the field? That zip, that bang. To me, that was always the big difference in the guys that have the high throw power. And so I don't know what you can do. You're still limited by the fact that it's a game. I mean, it's still physics of it aren't going. So I'm just curious to what can they do in the game to account for that zip to the sideline, that zip to that deep out route.
Well, and ultimately, that's really the difference that comes down to real-life NFL and Madden and what's possible in a video game. Because Peyton Manning has never really had the strongest arm in terms of having that zip. Because you're right, in Madden, that zip is everything. But what makes Peyton Manning great is he's making throws before his receivers make those cuts. So if he's got Reggie Wayne coming on a deep post, he's throwing the ball well before Reggie Wayne made his move. Obviously, I'm going way back talking about, Peyton Manning to Reggie Wayne, but that's what was great about them. You watch those highlights, Peyton Manning's throwing the ball, and 5 yards after it's in the air, Reggie Wayne makes his cut and comes into the spot where the ball's at. That doesn't happen in Madden because if you have your guy who's making a deep post, if you try to throw ahead of time, it's going to throw the streak. It's going to throw to the direction that the receiver's running to now. So that's why throw power becomes so important, because you have to throw it as your receiver's making the cut, which means the cornerback, the defensive back, has already made their adjustment to the route, so you have to be able to zip it in quicker. And that's just a game limitation versus real life. Peyton Manning can throw the ball wherever he wants to in real life, and he can have his receivers go get it. You don't have that aspect in Madden. One thing I have seen suggested in the past on different forums, I'm not necessarily saying I agree with this, just something that I've seen suggested, is instead of having your receivers be X, A, B, Y, right bumper, whatever, you have a cursor that you move and you lock on to your spot that you want to throw to. And the quarterback's accuracy will determine how on the spot it is. And then the receivers go to that spot to get the ball after it's been thrown. Now, I don't know how I feel about cursor-based passing as opposed to button-based passing, but that's a suggestion I've seen implemented.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, and again, you made the point. It's a limitation of the fact that it's a game, so you can only do so much. So, I'll be curious to see what comes up there, how they're going to account for those accuracies. Because when you look at a guy like Peyton Manning and his 86 throw power, I don't think that's getting anybody excited when it comes to playing. So, all right, so you've given us the top 4 gameplay. Give me one thing, or give me a couple of things in the connected franchise that you think is going to be the major. Obviously, the most glaring is the XP versus confidence, the short-term gains versus the long-term gains. Alan, what do you see there?
That's probably going to be the biggest change I see. A lot of the stuff that I've been looking up and hearing about, it seems more like an expansion upon what's already there. Like there's one where more draft like randomly created draft players will have more storylines than they did in the past. That's not really an innovation. Or there's going to be more transparency, and as a player gets older, it will tell you why his ratings are decreasing instead of just seeing him drop to a 72 when he was a 91. But that's not really necessarily an innovation. I think this confidence versus XP gain, it's not necessarily going to be a game changer, but it probably is the biggest difference that we have now. Because I can tell you, I get a lot of crap on the Facebook page and everything because I've ran the Niners the past couple of years and I won the Super Bowl that I should have won because I had a stacked team and everything. And the thing that comes with that is that I have no reason to acquire experience. All my guys are already high rated. I don't really need to increase anything except maybe a couple guys like maybe a Michael James or a low depth chart wide receiver or something like that, like a Quentin Patton. I don't need to boost up Colin Kaepernick or Patrick Willis or Vernon Davis or Michael Crabtree or any of those guys. Like, experience is pointless to me. So now that I have this whole confidence thing, that gives me a little bit more of an incentive to actually go into practice mode because, hey, I got a big game this week. I need to get my guys like an immediate increase. I don't care about this long-term stuff. I need this immediate increase. So I think we'll see how it's implemented. I think my biggest complaint about it is that everyone has the basic rating of 50, and then it goes up or down from there. I'd like to see, in order to individualize players more, I'd like to see certain players have a naturally high confidence. Richard Sherman, is he ever going to be unconfident in his life? Probably not. So I'd like to see something like that where different players already have an individual confidence rating to make them stand out even more. But as it is right now, I'm most curious about to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun seeing the balance. You're right. I think with the veteran teams, when we look at teams that are already built, whether that be the New England Patriots or like your San Francisco 49ers, yeah, absolutely. Confidence is going to be the focus. Where you look at a team like the Raiders, man, I'm going all XP all the time because hopefully then I can get Derek Carr to be a little mini Aaron Rodgers by, season 3. So yeah, great points there, Alan. Okay, so what do you one other thing that I would like to bring up though that I thought was really interesting what they're doing this year is the random draft class. And the way it's been historically is that there's been a draft class. and then it gets put into the game, and you'll get, I don't know how many there are, 8, 9, whatever there is, draft classes. They get put into the game, and they're all prefabbed. They're all the players, the grouping of the players is the same, and there are some great players in there, and there are some turds in there. This last year's game, I thought, really fell short on finding a balance. You would take a player that has these, 1 or 2 incredible attributes, and then he'd have another couple that are like in the 10s. Like it just really skewed to find that balance, instead of having him be kind of like a mediocre guy, like he should be a rookie, where maybe he's in the mid 70s, kind of across 4 attributes. Instead, he'd be in the 90s on 2, and he'd be in the 50s on another couple. You know what I mean? So I hope they find a little bit more of a balance there. But that said, the random draft classes, I think, is a fantastic idea, because now, without having these prefabbed draft classes, from a league perspective, I don't know about you, but it was not hard to get the draft classes. It's not a simple Google search would get you the draft classes, and whether it maybe not had every single player at every position, it would have like the top 10 players in each position. And so, all the work and everything else that would go into, scouting players was kind of all for naught in this last year's game. And I don't know if some guys did it, some guys did, and I kind of heard it both ways within our league. I'll admit it. I went and looked at a couple of them just because I heard you could do it, so I went and checked it out. Never really used it on draft day because I like to draft more for position, not best available player. But anyways, all that said, the randomness of it now hopefully it will prevent that from going on, but hopefully there will be a way for them to better balance the players versus having one attribute up high and one down low. And I'm going to just throw you one quick example because I still get a kick out of this guy. The guy when I ran the Titans, his name was Tobias Madru, and he had mid-80s coverages, man and zone. He was 95, I think, speed and acceleration, and had 10 awareness. So, his overall was in the 60s. But he led my team in interceptions. He was an amazing defensive back. So
the only problem was he thought he was playing wide receiver.
Well, exactly. Yeah, he didn't even know he was playing for the Titans. He thought he was playing for the Volunteers or something. You know what I mean? So I hope now that's unfair. I shouldn't have a guy like that be able to be that dominant. But again, that's the game limitations and mechanics of Madden. But hopefully, with the randomness of the draft classes, that problem will then go away.
Oh, and that's probably been one of my biggest complaints about the draft classes in the past too. I think they had something like 25 or 30 classes or something each year. So it was randomly selected which class you got, but like you said, the classes were already predetermined. I never went on Google myself to look them up because I don't like the whole metagame thing on that. But I do know that people were doing that a lot and stuff. But that example that you gave of your safety is perfect. It seemed like that was their balance in trying to not have everyone be rated 80 or 90 coming out of the draft, as they give them these incredible acceleration and throw power and speed stats and all that stuff, and then give them 10 awareness because that'll drop their overall rating by 40 points. But you don't know the difference as a manual gamer controlling him because it's just not really a factor. Because
you're the awareness, you're the
exactly.
Ball control vision, you're the whatever stat it is. Absolutely.
And also another thing that I noticed in the randomized draft classes is going in the opposite direction. I think I had a wide receiver, I forget if it was last year or Madden 13, who had an acceleration rating of 65 as a wide receiver. And it's no wide receiver that's ever going to play football on any level has an acceleration of 65. You mentioned a little bit earlier, your son, my nephew, in his football game earlier, I think Vincent has a higher than 65 acceleration rating.
Not much. Us Murphys are not fast.
It might only be a 67, but he's also playing tight end.
That's right, but he's got a 99 awareness. That's Russ Murphy's make up for it. We may be slow, but we're aware as crap.
But it's frustrating when you have these draft classes that their speed as a wide receiver is 72, their acceleration is 60, their man coverage as a cornerback is 22. You know, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not by much. I'd like to see more realistic draft classes, and granted, it almost broke our league last year, and it does take a lot of work, even if it is working, so I'm not necessarily saying we should do this, but that's why I really like the imported draft classes from the NCAA games, because not only are you keeping the realism alive of actually getting real players, but the ratings are usually a lot more realistic and balanced than they are with these random draft classes. So, yeah, they're randomized a lot more now. And they're supposed to have more randomized storylines instead of predetermined ones. More players are supposed to get affected by these storylines, so it's supposed to make the draft more engaging. I just hope that when they say more randomized, they don't mean more wide receivers with a 42 speed rating.
Well, you know, you bring up a great point about the imported draft class, and I think that ideally that's what we all want, right? Because we all want to run with, you know, you name it, you know, college player coming out, you know, whether last year it could have been a Johnny Manziel or Jadeveon Clowney, whatever the case may be. We all would want that. But yeah, it totally screwed up the game. It almost, you know, submarined our entire league. And then nowadays, there's not even an NCAA game. So maybe that's kind of forced EA's hand a little bit to get the draft class thing figured out from a CPU perspective, because they couldn't, you know, fall back on that anymore with the imported draft.
Well, I'm just curious to see what they do with it this year.
All right, well, let's move on. Speaking of ratings, Alan, boy, they kind of started trickling out. I don't know what it's been about 2 weeks ago now, first part of August. But then they came fast and furious, and now at this point we have every single Madden rating, every player. Of course, you know, some players are going to go up. That's why or down. That's why we wait typically until the first roster update. Not only does that get all the latest free agent acquisitions or cuts, you know, because players are moving around this time of year. Here we are going into the third week of preseason, or just completing, I guess. Well, actually, we're in the middle of week 2 preseason. Anyway.
Yeah, week 2.
So all that said, players are going to be moving around. Guys are getting cut. You know, people are going to get cut from other teams and signed, put on, you know, when they go to waivers, they're going to get picked up by other teams. There's a lot of transition this time of year. So the rosters may look a little different. Typically, it's at your depth positions. I mean, your big time starters are not going to go anywhere. But all that said, we have the ratings have come out, and it's a fun time. We've had a lot of discussion in our league between the guys about, you know, their spreadsheets and, you know, and looking online and trying to assemble their team. Man, I'm a nerd when it comes to that stuff. I print out my entire roster. I start making my depth chart, mainly because I want to see where am I weak? What areas do I need to improve at? So when we come to the free agent draft, what's going to be my first shot? What position do I need a starter at absolutely week 1 that I can pull in the free agent draft? Now, we don't know what those free agents are going to be yet, but that said, it helps you identify positions. Now, you can't always identify for the draft because that's a little too far away, but the college draft, but for the free agent draft, it certainly can help you. And it also, I think, lends to what are the strengths of my team? You know, some teams are consistent year after year at certain positions to where you know you can count on them, whether it's for the Raiders, for instance, it's Darren McFadden. I mean, he's lost a couple points off of his speed, but he's still a 95. I mean, he's still one of the best and most deadliest running backs in Madden. So you can identify some areas of your team. Maybe that will help you start thinking about how you're going to call plays this year. You know, did your team draft a quarterback like Blake Bortles? You know, Blake Bortles you're going to use tremendously different than you're going to use a Johnny Manziel. Now, those are obviously big-time starters I'm talking about, but as you get to look at your team and the ratings, it could start to develop your game planning. So, all that said, We've got our top lists here, and we're going to run down just a few of them. We won't get too far in the weeds on this, but let's go ahead and start off with the quarterbacks, Alan. You know, the quarterback in Madden and in real life. In real life, it's certainly true. In Madden, it's my opinion. It's the most valuable position. If you don't have a quarterback, you're in trouble. You got to have somebody that's either a completely solid starter on week one, or somebody that you know you're going to have to develop a little bit to turn into that starter long term with a rookie like, for me, again, bring up the Raiders, Derek Carr. Derek Carr has got some great base stats. He literally will be a mini Aaron Rodgers coming up. He's got similar throw power. He's got similar accuracies. He's got 80 speed, 83 acceleration. So you got to have the quarterback position locked up. The best quarterbacks in the game, the top 5, as far as overall rating goes, are these. You got Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, and Tom Brady. Alan, if I'm looking at this list, there's only 2 guys that I'm going to start week 1. For long-term success, there's only 2 guys. Maybe a third if you count Tom Brady. But in my opinion, Aaron Rodgers with his 94 throw power, 92, 88, and 90 on accuracies, 87 play action, 88 throw on the run, 80 speed, 85 acceleration. He's the best quarterback in the game, period, end of story. And the only one that comes close is Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has close to the same throw power. He gives up a little bit in accuracies, in 87, 83, and 89, but he makes up for it with 86 speed and 92 acceleration. That dude can get out of the pocket quicker than anybody. When I look at Tom Brady, 93 throw power is nice. The accuracies are nice. 80 deep is not that great, but he's old. Unless you think that you're going to win with him right off the bat, you're better off starting Ryan Mallett. When you look at Drew Brees, 89 throw power, that's kind of low, and then accuracies are decent, 91, 81, and 86. That you know, and then then last in you got Pepe with his 86 throw power. We know his accuracies are great, but 86 throw power, even I don't care how much they change the game. He's got 86 freaking throw power. You're much better off starting Brock Osweiler, the 6'6" dude with a freaking cannon, and start building him up, because you know that Pepe is probably going to retire. Now that's a team that's built to win immediately, but. What are your thoughts? What do you think? Quarterback-wise, do you start? Is that where you start building a team? And out of the list of the top 5 quarterbacks, are those 5 really the most desirable Madden quarterbacks?
Well, I don't know if they're necessarily the top 5 most desirable Madden quarterbacks, but I think ultimately, I have to disagree with you. I think
that makes for terrible radio. No, you have to agree with me on everything.
Well, you and I usually don't struggle to find a disagreement when it comes to football.
Let's talk about
and this kind of comes down to my philosophy about football in general. I don't think you bench Peyton Manning. I don't think you bench Tom Brady. I don't think you do that in real life, and I don't think you do it in Madden. And the reason why I don't think you do it in Madden is because Madden doesn't have a mental rating, whereas in real life, obviously, it does. You can make or break a young quarterback by how you handle them. Aaron Rodgers sat for, 3 or 4 years before Favre finally decided to actually retire, kind of. And Aaron Rodgers has succeeded because of it. You have other examples of quarterbacks who were thrust into the starting position from the beginning and were broken because of it. David Carr, your guy's brother. But Madden doesn't have any of that. A quarterback is going to be good or he's going to be bad regardless. So I don't think you need to start a Brock Osweiler or any of those other guys to try to build them up. They're going to be good regardless, or they're going to be bad regardless. I think you stick it out with Peyton Manning. I think you stick it out with Tom Brady. I think you stick it out with...
Hold on. If you're talking about what really is, again, we haven't played the new game yet, so we're just going to go off historically what's gone on in Madden. And we all know that throw power is probably, if not the most valuable asset to a quarterback. It's also the most expensive to increase. So you're better off having a guy like Josh Freeman, or you're better off having a guy like John Skelton, who's got a big throw power, who you can up his accuracies pretty quickly, and within a half a season, you have an absolute monster of a quarterback, versus taking a guy like Peyton Manning or a guy like Tom Brady, who not only commands a massive salary, but is probably going to retire within a year or two. So you've lost that ability to invest into your future by keeping with your present. I think that there's a major disparity between real life and Madden when it comes to the handling of quarterbacks.
Well, and actually, again, this is where we disagree, because I don't think sitting a quarterback on the bench is going to make a big difference. And I think we only have to look in our very own league to see that. Maybe my history is wrong, and you can correct me if I am, but our very own commissioner won a Super Bowl with the Raiders with Carson Palmer. Now, his backup quarterback, you'll have to remind me of the name. I'm forgetting it off the top of my head, but got the experience boost from riding the bench and winning that Super Bowl. So at that point in time, Salty was able to beef up his backup quarterback, get rid of Carson Palmer, and then go off. All right, yes, Mallet, that's right. And then win a second Super Bowl with Mallet, because riding the bench got him that same experience. And from my understanding of the way Madden is supposed to work now this year, is that if you're the second string quarterback, if you're Ryan Mallett or if you're Brock Osweiler, you don't have to reach those 3,000, 4,000 yard, 30, 40, 50 touchdown seasons to gain the experience. You get that experience based on your spot on the depth chart.
Well, you just made a perfect point, and you're right. Yeah, that is the big difference, is that if they truly allow the quarterback on the bench to accelerate in his XP at the same rate as the guy that's starting, based on that, because you don't have to attain those yardage targets or those touchdown targets, absolutely, that's an excellent point, and hopefully that holds true. Then because you know what, is strategic as it is to start a Ryan Mallett or a John Skelton over a guy like Carson Palmer, it's not as fun. It's not within the spirit of the game. Nobody in their right mind wants to see Ryan Mallett starting week 1 for the New England Patriots. We want to see in the leaderboards and on the, in the box scores the next day when we're looking on Madden Daddy, we want to see that it was Tom freaking Brady. I want to see Ryan Mallett. So you're right. That's excellent, and hopefully that's the way that it holds up going forward. All right, so let's skip on to the next subject here. Let's go to the next position ranking. We got quite a few of these to go through. We'll kind of blaze through some of these. Fullback, it starts and ends at Marcel Reese. I don't think there's any question out there who the best Madden fullback is, strictly based on his speed, his acceleration, his route running, pass catching abilities. He's an instant matchup nightmare. I wish the Raiders would use him more effectively in real life as they do, as you are able to use him in Madden. Alan, going back to when we first started this thing, I got accused quite a bit of being a cheese player because of the way that I would use Marcel Reese. And, I'm like, well, it's not my fault I have a fullback with 90 speed. I'm sorry you don't. You know what I mean? It's like, what am I going to do, not throw to the guy because he's open, because he's a fullback? Who cares what his position? He's lining up in the fullback position and getting open on wheel routes. So sue me. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what the guy does. Blame Donnie Moore if you want to blame anybody. But the good news is for Raider fans is that that's what he is in real life. And I think that they've used him at times effectively, could get a lot better, and hopefully they will this year as he continues to be more and more of a feature. Because, they got not only line him up in the fullback position, but he can split out. He was a wide receiver at the University of Washington in college, so he's got incredible route running and pass catching. The guy's just one of the more versatile players in real life and in Madden. So, while the others may be a little bit better pass blockers, I think when you add in his dynamic and his explosiveness in the offense from a passing perspective, I don't think there's any question. It's all about Marcel Reese.
Well, at the risk of bad radio, I'm not going to necessarily disagree with you on that. I think a lot of it comes down to what you're looking for in a fullback, and if you're looking for someone to go West Coast offense with it and be a threat out of the backfield, then you're absolutely right. I think Marcel Reese, despite him not having the highest overall rating, it's by one, but is probably the best investment you could get as a fullback. And not to be a total fanboy here, I'm actually kind of surprised that Bruce Miller isn't on this list. Top five.
Right.
Well, he was a 93 or something, I think, last year, and now Jerome Felton at 88 is number 5. So I'm curious to see how far Bruce Miller dropped, but he's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, whereas Marcel Reese is out of the backfield.
Yeah, okay, Bruce Miller. Come on,
Hey.
Alan, give me a break. It's Marcel Reese and that's it. All right, moving on. Let's go to regular running backs. Man, I think the competition, although it questionable, we'll call it at quarterbacks, slam dunk at fullback. Now we start getting really competitive, and I think this might be, as far as when you look at what it takes to have a good Madden running back. I mentioned Darren McFadden earlier because of the different dynamics of that player and what he's able to bring. He hasn't shown the consistency on the field and the ability to stay healthy, and so it kind of dings him up a little bit in Madden. But that said, the features of his game are amplified in some of these players, and there are some guys on this list, Alan, that are just absolutely dominant. It starts with Adrian Peterson, goes down to Shady McCoy, Jamal Charles, Matt Forte, and Marshawn Lynch. Now, Marshawn's a ground and pound kind of guy. He's not a finesse player. He's not bouncing to the outside, catching swing passes and juking 4 people on his way to the end zone. He's more of a smash mouth kind of guy. So we're gonna remove him because he's by far the best hard runner in the game. I don't think that there's any question that when you look at his trucking ability and that goes, if you need to have somebody pound the rock up inside for 3 yards for first down, there's no one better to do it than Marshawn Lynch. But then we move on to Matt Forte, Shady McCoy, and Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson, to me, is the best all-around back, has that trucking ability, has some speed, has a lot of the overalls. But to me, Alan, you got Matt Forte's a little bit short of these two guys, but very similar in gameplay. To me, the best 2 running backs in Madden are Jamal Charles and Shady McCoy, and I think Shady even edges Jamal Charles, making him the best Madden running back there is. Listen to some of these numbers. 94 speed, 98 acceleration, 96 carry, 99 elusiveness, 96 spin, 99 juke, and 99 agility. This guy might be this is like Michael Vick 04 over here. This guy might be the best player in Madden, let alone the best running back.
Probably him or Jamal Charles, as you said. And until proven otherwise, speed kills in Madden at the running back position. So you can have, Adrian Peterson's got a good speed, but you can have a lot of those guys that are mentioned on this list, like a Marshawn Lynch, Matt Forte, and those kinds of guys. Or you can go find those 78 overalls that have the 97 acceleration and the 95 speed and be just as good, if not better, with a lower salary cap hit. I know I got a lot last year because I wasn't making LaMichael James a feature back because of his stats. I know Tywan Jones has been a major running back in our league in the past.
Good thing he's a cornerback now.
Well, until proven
yeah, you're right. When he was a running back, absolutely, he was a monster.
Until proven otherwise, unless you have a guy like a LaShawn McCoy or Jamal Charles, a 78 overall, 97 speed guy is going to be just as good as Adrian Peterson and probably at a better investment. So Adrian Peterson, he does have the speed and the acceleration. So Adrian Peterson might be, taking an extreme shot at the system because Adrian Peterson is Adrian Peterson, and I know that our Vikings owner has used him to great success in the past. But maybe
I know I've been on the wrong end of those beatings a couple of times, man. I'm telling you, he is an absolute handful. Terry does a great job with Adrian Peterson and does it well in all facets of the game. He can. We mentioned pounding the rock up inside for short yardage gains. He uses them on pitches. He'll even get him out of the backfield a little bit, on some wheels and throw to him occasionally. But really, just running off tackle. I mean, he's just darn good at it, and we're going to have a little bit better containment system this year. So hopefully, I can, if we do play, then I'll be able to handle him a little bit better. But Terry and I played a lot. For some reason, Madden 25 chose to match us up in the preseason week 1 like 4 times. Like, I mean, he and I, and not only on 360 but on Xbox One as well. He and I played a lot over this. The past calendar year. Terry and I have played. Probably more than I've played anybody, honestly. And usually he's torching me with Adrian Peterson. He is an absolute beast. You're right.
Well, I will say this is I haven't seen this officially confirmed one way or another or not, but there's one theory that I've had that's made these high overall but not necessarily high speed running backs stand out. And I'm curious to see if that's going to translate into the new generation, and that's ball carrier vision. I feel like, just using my own examples, even though I've had guys like Kendall Hunter and LaMichael James who are a lot faster than Frank Gore has ever dreamed of being, the reason why I've stuck with Frank Gore is I feel like the ball carrier vision and running backs with high ball carrier vision get better blocks, get better performance out of their offensive line and from their blocking fullbacks. And so if that maintains true, if I'm even accurate on that, it's just been my own experience.
I'm with you. I honestly, dude, I think that's a mental thing. I used to think that as well. I thought that, the holes open up more. You're able to, something is different when you have that high ball carrier vision. But everything that I've been able to find, everything I've researched on that, it says the contrary, that it's purely a CPU stat, that it's because when you're controlling the running back, this is the rub on offensive awareness and these other stats, you're the awareness. You're the ball carrier vision. You see the hole. You know when to make the cut. That's your vision, not the pixelated guy. So I'm with you on that. I used to think that too. I thought, it's more slippery. Like they're able to just get through there better when they have ball carrier vision. But I don't think that's the case. At least I haven't been able to find anything that supports that. And I found a lot of it that speaks out against it, that says it's just not true.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe it is a mental thing. I just feel like that with everything else being the same, from play calls to my offensive linemen to everything else, Frank Gore was getting holes that LaMichael James and Kendall Hunter weren't. And so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just coincidence, but that's how it's always felt to me.
All right, Alan, moving on to the tight ends. Buddy, you win. You flat out win. There's a few positions that are leaned heavily to the San Francisco 49ers as far as the best in the game. And, there are some major names on the tight end list. When you look at guys like Jimmy Graham, you look at Gronk, you look at Jason Witten and Greg Olsen, I don't think anybody doubts that all of those 4 guys are phenomenal. Some Hall of Fame tight ends. Maybe receiver, talk about Jimmy Graham, but those guys are potentially Hall of Famers and are all Madden guys. They are fantastic Madden players. But there is not a tight end in the league that can pop the top off of a defense like Vernon Davis with that 90 speed, 92 acceleration, and 94 jump. You could put this guy in a freaking fade route at the corner of the end zone, and he's going to out-jump any DB out there. What is he, 6'6"? So I think Vernon Davis, it kind of – I'm not going to say it stops and starts with him because there are some – Jimmy Graham's phenomenal, and he was the best tight end in all of football last year. Gronk is Gronk, man. He's amazing. But the agility, the jump – all of it kind of puts together with Vernon Davis, and I think he's the best tight end in the game.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you. Actually, no, I'm not. What? I can't even about that. Okay. I've been very adamant in the past on the Facebook page and everywhere else that, and even to you going way back when we would, game face to face, that ratings, except for certain examples, are overrated and don't play that much of a factor in the game. Vernon Davis is one of those exceptions. He is, by and large, the focal point of my offense, and I don't care if it's 2006 and I have Alex Smith as quarterback, or if it's now and I have Colin Kaepernick as quarterback. I'm to a point now that if I don't have Vernon Davis as tight end, I can't play Madden. He's become that integral to my offense because that kind of speed from that position is a huge advantage, because there's really no linebackers that are going to keep up with that. And by the time he's gotten to the safeties, it's too late, because he's probably already caught it and is trucking over the safety and then outrunning him to the end zone. His biggest weakness is his catch in traffic. I'm not sure what the exact rating is on it this year, but that was the one problem that I had, is that if there was anyone within a 5-yard radius of him, he wasn't going to hold on to the pass. But a couple years of experience and pumping that up changes that also. So
well, you're really right. That number is a 75. He's got a 75 catch in traffic. His route running is only 72, and that's pretty low. But again, those are the stats, though, that can be brought up relatively easily. I mean, halfway through a season, you can get that route running into the mid-80s, and same with that catching traffic if you focus on it. So it's really not a major deal. Where when you look at his release, it's an 86 release out of a guy that's playing on the line of scrimmage, for crying out loud. I mean, you're right. He's blowing by linebackers. You're at best, you got to put in a nickel or a dime and try to commit a safety to him. That's the only way I was ever able to have success against you with him, is that I would bring a guy like Tyvon Branch, who's got like 95 speed, 90-something acceleration, bring him down into the box and put him on Vernon. Put somebody that can come in there and run with him, because that's really your best bet to counter a guy like that, because you're right. He's just going right through everybody through the line of scrimmage. When I brought up the example earlier about Chris Johnson running on a streak out of the backfield, and running by linebackers and safeties. Well, that's the same thing you got with your tight end. Here he is. He's the sixth guy there, lined up just a bit off the line of scrimmage, and you send him on a streak. Who's going to catch him? Nobody. He's gone. He's well into the secondary before your linebacker knows what's going on. So if you don't have a guy that can come down into the box and run with him, you want to talk about a weapon. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, and that's the thing. You mentioned his low route running ability, but when you're running seam routes from the slot position, you don't really need a route runner to run a straight line or a wheel route or something like that. So, no, Vernon Davis has probably been my favorite Madden player since the Niners drafted him, however many years ago it's been now. And the great thing for me is when you commit all those defensive backs to him, I got Anquan Bolden and Michael Crabtree wide open now. So
there you go. All right, moving on to the wide receivers.
Speaking
of, good segue, Alan. It's
a little
crowded. It's a little crowded at the top, similar to the running backs. I think there are quite a few guys that can qualify as despite overall rating. There's some guys that can claim being at the top. 5 to 1 goes Dez, AJ, Andre Johnson, Brandon Marshall, and Calvin Johnson. Now, there are some others I think that can compete in that realm. One of them is a teammate of Brandon Marshall. I think Alshon Jeffrey is a fantastic receiver, and really Chicago. When you look at wide receiver cores, I don't expect you to agree, Mr. Niner Hunk, but I think that's the best wide receiver core in all of football, especially when you add in a guy that at tight end like Martellus Bennett, who's a phenomenal pass catcher as well. I think that
I don't agree that that's the best duo, but not for the reasons you think.
Okay. But all that said, it's Calvin, man. It's Calvin Johnson. If Osteen doesn't put up 5,000 yards with him this year, he's doing something wrong. Put him on a fade route. You got Matthew Stafford. What has he got, 98 throw power or something? Just chuck it, man. Just chuck it. I don't understand why this guy... Have you ever messed around with Calvin Johnson? No, not like that. But you know what I mean? Like, have you...
I can't say that I have, Josh. I hope you haven't either.
Well, I have, but not in that kind of way. Virtually. Okay. It's amazing. It's amazing what you can do with him. I talked about throwing corner routes to the end zone earlier. You just throw it up there. He'll go get it. He'll just go get it. He's amazing of a Madden player. Of course, his overall rating is a 99, and that's no surprise to everybody. When you look at all the different stats that he has, I mean, his spectacular catch is 99. You guys may or may not be aware, and if I'm wrong, Justin, correct me, because I know Justin knows a lot about this stuff. Your spectacular catch will take over for your regular catch if it kicks in. Okay, so
kind of.
If you have, because it triggers a different animation. Okay, so if your spectacular catch is 99 and your regular catch is 50, okay, the spectacular catch triggers an animation that makes the 50 irrelevant. So what that means is that 99 will trigger that animation for that player to go up there and to make that catch. And then once he gets his hands on the ball, it's carrying. So again, to go to the example, that 50 catch doesn't matter. You go spectacular catch to carrying because now you've got possession of it and then you're taking the hit, okay? So Calvin Johnson has a 99 spectacular catch. That's it. Just throw it up there to him. Just let him go get it. He'll go get it all day long. I'm telling you. And then you match that again with the throw power of Matthew Stafford. There should be nobody stopping Ostie with Calvin Johnson. He, to me, is by far the best wide receiver. And I'm not going to call it a distant second, but it's Calvin Johnson and then like a bunch of guys and then all the ones that suck when it comes to Madden.
Well, you're almost right on the spectacular catch thing, but not quite. It doesn't negate your regular catch rating, but what it does is it combines with it. Now, in the case of Calvin Johnson, it doesn't matter because he's
got that too, yeah.
But I have had instances it's with both catch in traffic and spectacular catch and stuff like that. Basically, what it is that your catch rating is still the dominant one. If you are a low rating catch person, then having a high spectacular catch or catch in traffic isn't going to negate that, but it combines with it. So if you have an 80 catch but a 90 catch in traffic, then when you get hit, you'll have a better chance of catching it because you have such a high catch in traffic or spectacular catch, but your catch is still only an 80. So you're still only going to catch it at most as regularly as an 80.
Well, and his catch is a 98, so you're right.
So it doesn't matter in terms of Calvin Johnson. And I've played against these Lions with OC, and
his jump is 98 too. I didn't even. I'm looking at him now.
You might as well not even cover Calvin Johnson because I could put 11 guys on Calvin Johnson and he's still gonna catch it. So it's just you might as well not even cover him because he's that good. Going back to my point, I guess this isn't necessarily relevant to the stats, but I wouldn't call the Bears the best wide receiver duo. And no, it's not because it's the Niners. I think it's Atlanta, hands down. If you're talking just wide receivers, I mean, they don't necessarily have the tight end anymore, but with Julio Jones and Roddy White, I think that's the best duo in both real life and Madden, if you're talking 1 and 2.
I don't know. I'm not with you on that.
Well,
I'd take Golden Tate and Calvin Johnson before I'd take those two guys.
Well, that's because you're taking Calvin Johnson.
Well, yeah. So, you know what I mean? But Brandon, come on now. Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey's it. That's it. I think Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb are better than Roddy and Julio. Roddy's not all that great anymore. Roddy's like 34, man. He's not up there with Roddy's not an elite receiver anymore. I mean, he's good, and Harry Douglas is good, but he's not up there. He's not an elite guy. He's not a Julio. Uh-oh. Hold on. Someone's breaking in here. Caller, are you there?
Murphy.
Which one?
Murphy who?
The older one, the balder one, the one with more accumulative body hair.
You got me on older.
I hope the Dirty Birds play your Raiders, and all I got to do is cover the fullback angle, coming out of the backfield. I'll cover your.
Don't forget hey, what happened to the tight end streak? Does it get any love?
I'll cover your streaking tight end, and I'm going to make Roddy White have at least 10 catches.
No way. I'm going to pin.
I'm painting my Raider room right now. The top coat of silver is on. I'm about ready to paint black. I'll send you pictures later. Alan Murphy, your radio voice sucks as bad as your Madden game.
Well, then I must sound pretty good because you haven't beaten me yet.
There he is. The commish makes his appearance here on WestOne Radio. It was good to have him defending his position with Roddy White. You know what, though? I'll just stick Tywan Jones on him. I'll just stick a fast cornerback on him with good man coverage and just shut Roddy down. You can try your little comebackers and all that other little stuff. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not the Falcons. It's not the Falcons' day is over. Plus, what are you going to do? You're going to throw it there with Matt Ryan? I could bowl it faster than Matt Ryan can throw it. All right.
Well, just a shame you guys aren't in the same conference anymore because I'd love to see that. I mean, I have no problem containing Roddy White and Julio Jones, but I'd love to see you try to.
Well, but let me tell you this, and here's what happens. We're going to play plenty. You know what I mean? It's just like you and I. I mean, it doesn't matter what conference we're in, what division we're in, whatever. We may very rarely see each other when it comes to WestOne Madden League, but when it comes to, lobby games and just, hey, we got the 5-day early release, let's play some Madden, you know what's going to go down. You know we're all going to end up playing each other, so we'll see. And those are for bragging rights, kind of like the old days when you and I had the little Post-it notes that kept it going, which, we would alternate. 1 year, typically, you would have the best of me, and 1 year I'd have the best of you. But anyways, all that said, that's the bragging rights. You know what I miss? Let me go back a little second. You remember which one was it? Was it Madden 10 that actually tracked the record head to head between two guys playing against each other, shoulder to shoulder? You remember that?
I think it was even earlier than that. I think it was when we first started playing. When I first got out there to Tennessee, I think it was like 8 or 9 or something like that. I think it was even earlier than that.
That was a great feature. That's something that, playing head-to-head on the couch, is a blast. And having that running tally going, I thought was a pretty cool feature. But anyways, I digress. All right, moving on. Top offensive linemen, and there's a list, and there's 5 guys. Joe Thomas, Evan Mathis, Josh Sitton, Trent Williams, and Joe Staley. Okay, they're all great offensive linemen. There are lots of great offensive linemen in Madden. I'm not going to say they're non-impact. I'm not going to say they're not impact players, but they're offensive linemen. You get good strength, good run block, whatever. Okay, so Joe Thomas probably easily is one of the best, but, it's debatable. I don't know. You got any thoughts on offensive linemen in Madden? I guess not. All right, moving on. Top defensive ends. Here it gets a little interesting. Boy, there's some good guys here at the top. Again, you got kind of that grouping of the middle to late 90s guys, and then you got a dominant player at the top.
Julius
what? Was that you?
Julius Peppers, I believe.
Oh, hold on. Caller, are you there?
You're talking about top ends. How can you not say Julius Peppers instantly?
Welcome to the show, Josh Norman, and I am Brett Favre. You already got a fantastic offense. Now you've got defensive players to go along with it. I'm with you. Julius Peppers is going to be an awesome addition to that line, especially if you start stacking Mr. Matthews over the edge of him and have both those guys going at a quarterback at the same time.
I'm so pumped to have him.
He's worried.
Are you supposed to be worried? I don't know. What's our record versus each other there on?
USA United Insurance is off-handed.
You guys hear me? I cut off.
I don't know. I hear like an insurance commercial, and I'm not sure who it's coming from. You guys are killing me.
I clicked the link, and that popped up. When I started talking, I just blank it out with whatever I can find.
Well, it makes sense that an insurance company would come up because Norman's going to need some insurance after I get done with him.
Oh, man. I've never been more excited about a Madden than this year. If you guys could see the smile on my face right now, I'm not looking to have a fun little Madden league with you boys and we're playing some games. I want to humiliate you. I want to win so bad that I want you to hang it up. I want to see next year at the radio show Josh Murphy's controllers hanging on that wall right next to the pitcher back behind you. I want to end your guys' Madden career. All of you.
No, well, I can assure you that's not going to happen because the night that I threw 8 picks against K-Mat, if there would have been any night for me to quit, that would have been it.
You got me there, dude. I probably would have hung it up, man.
And in order to get me to hang it up, you actually have to be clutch, which we all know you're not. So
I gave you a game, man. Fuck, dude. This is gonna haunt me forever, man. It's so tough to deal with. The one game, man. The one game.
It wasn't just one game. You got kind of lucky on the other ones too.
Well, I like to play you into it. Like, you give someone hope and then you take it away. I build my life off that, dude. I'm like, hey, man, you're competitive. You're so competitive. Like, you can keep, like my little brother and me playing Pig. I let him get PI on me, and then I take it away every time. And that's what I did to you. But you almost blew it.
You blew a 35-point lead against me.
Well, if you say blew it, you would say I lost that game, right?
But it shouldn't have gone into overtime anyways. It was 35 points. I shut you down and owned you for a half.
For me. It made it exciting for me. That's what I was doing.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So, I blew it, but I gave you hope and I took it away, and that's what's fun to me. I want to say, here you go, man. Get excited. It's a fun game. And then just rip it out of your hands.
You know what's exciting to me? Winning championships. Oh, you wouldn't know anything about that. Maybe I'll have a radio show and talk to you about that.
Man. Bring Salty back, man. I cannot deal with Murphy, you're great, dude. Josh, get a radio show yourself. This is hilarious. You on, I cannot take, dude. I didn't take your call, man, because I muted this shit for the last 2 hours.
Oh, man. Well, we appreciate the constructive criticism there, Mr.
Your show.
All right. Thanks a lot. We appreciate you calling in. Look forward to seeing what you're going to do with the Packers. We talked about Aaron Rodgers earlier. He's a stud, man. He's the best in the game. I think if you gave not only real-life GMs, but all of us Madden GMs a chance to build the team and we had a first pick, I think it's Aaron Rodgers. That's it.
One last word real quick. Imagine what I can do with Rodgers after I took Jordan Lynch to 2 MVPs, all right? That's the last word, and I'm done. Good talking to you guys.
All right, thanks for calling in, Josh.
You need to shut Josh Norman up, because Josh...
Oh, here we go. Salty, the commissioner, makes an appearance again.
It's that freaking jackass's fault that we got to hear Alan Murphy talk about how great he is. Josh Norman blew a 35-point lead. Josh Norman's new name is Warren freaking Moon.
No one hurts more than me, Salty, letting him beat me that playoff game. Trust me. Ask my wife. She'll say, fuck Auden Murphy.
Hey, it's not my fault that I'm able to read your one-track defense and you can't adjust. Just saying.
Wait, weren't you 4th and goal versus me in the last playoff game and I stopped you? You must have read that defense pretty well. You were 4th and goal to score and win, and I stopped you. Do you know Colin Kaepernick can run? He's pretty fast. You should have tried to sneak that in.
Here's what I have to say about that. Even a broken clock is right twice a day, Josh. So you got lucky. You made one stop on me. It's bound to happen.
I'm taking up the radio show talking this waste of time. So continue, guys.
All right. Thanks again, Josh, for calling in. I appreciate you. All right. Here we go. You guys crack me up. Too funny.
Let it burn.
All right. Well, hey, you know what? That's what this thing's all about, man. That's what makes it fun, and look forward to all the great. We have some great rivalries in West One. Earlier today on the Facebook page, we had a return visit from Chris, CJW85, who runs the Denver Broncos, and Chris was the very first owner in West 360. It was obviously Salty started the league and invited his good buddy Chris, and then invited me, and Chris got in before I did and sucked up all the good free agents, by the way. But anyways, he was the very first one, and so I had the Raiders, and he's a huge Bronco fan, and so he and I became instant rivals right away, and have ribbed each other, greatly over the past few years that we've been doing this, and look forward to seeing him coming back and being part of it all again. But anyways, all that said, we got some long-standing rivalries. I had a good rivalry with K-Matt, with the Titans and the Colts. You and Norman have arguably the best rivalry going on right now. There's always good rivalries going on in our league, and that's what definitely makes it a lot of fun. The personalities involved and everything that goes on. So, all right, let's dip back into defensive ends. No, Norman, it's not freaking Julius Peppers, although he is going to be a great addition to your defense. It's J.J. Watt, man. And then you look at Clowney. Good night. Have you guys seen what Clowney's been doing in the preseason? He's absolutely destroying people. Falcons. I mean, their offensive line sucks, and Clowney blew them up. Man, it was ugly, the plays that he was making in the backfield. He's such a stud, and having him and Watt coming off the edges, after quarterback, I think that a dominant pass rusher is the second most important thing you have to be competitive. Again, not only in real life, but in Madden as well. And so, having J.J. Watt and Clowney on the same line, that's it, man. And, there's some other good guys. The other high-rated guys are Robert Quinn, Cameron Wake, Calais Campbell, Cameron Jordan, and Muhammad Wilkerson. So some other very good players up there. But defensive end is one of those kind of positions that you could find other guys with good acceleration, good block shed. They can kind of accomplish the same things that some of these other four guys can, but not a J.J. Watt. I think that he kind of stands out to me as the best defensive end in Madden.
Well, and I'm curious to see how the defensive end gameplay changes this year, because they have the whole timing the snap, jump off the snap, everything mechanic going on now, which I think was in NCAA a few years ago that I thought was a really good addition. So that's, I think, and they've made the interactions more user-friendly in terms of your power moves and your finesse moves and all that stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how the defensive line plays out now. It might make these defensive ends even more important than they already were, which will be nice, because as important as they were kind of really weird the last few years in terms of you could plug in anyone on the left end and they were going to lead your team in sacks, because for some reason you could have J.J. Watt at the right end spot and they were just going to get sucked in every time. So I'd like to see these more improved mechanics make for some more intuitive and realistic line gameplay and make someone like J.J. Watt on the right end spot a lot more important.
Well, it's always important to have a good tackle to go along with a defensive end. You got a lot of times those tackles, you're going to draw a double team. And when they draw that double team, it allows those outside linebackers, those defensive ends to get freed up to take good runs at the quarterback. There are some phenomenal DTs in the game. I've always been a fan of having a big, strong defensive tackle, somebody that can push through those blocks. Obviously, you got to have a good block shed. You got to have somebody that can get rid of it and move on to the ball carrier. Ndamukong Suh, Geno Atkins, Gerald McCoy, Kyle Williams, and Jarrell Casey of the Tennessee Titans are your top 5 defensive tackles in the game. That's a pretty accurate list. Again, there's some other guys that can have those certain attributes that really impact that position, and you can be very competitive with those players. But I think that this list, top 5, that's pretty dead on to what it's like in real life and in Madden as well. And Ndamukong Suh, I mean, sheesh. I'm surprised Haloti Ngata's not on this list. That was kind of surprising to me. As strong as he is and with the block shed that he has, I figured he'd have been there. But outside of that, I think the list is pretty dead on.
Yeah, and I hope that you brought up strength and stuff. I hope it plays a lot more of an important role, because there were times the mechanics running like a 4-3 versus a 3-4 haven't really played out right. You could have that big beefy guy in the middle of the 3-4, but he's not drawing double teams because the strength and stuff didn't play out quite the way that it was supposed to. So a lot of times these really good players in real life were kind of negated depending on your scheme and stuff in Madden. So it'll be interesting to see if that stuff with the whole line play interactions now, if that's improved a little bit.
Backing up a little bit to the linebackers, the top 2 guys kind of suck. Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis, overrated. Let's talk about Luke Kuechly. Man, what a great player, the face of the game. I'm surprised that he didn't catch a cover vote with as much as they've dedicated to at least the early phases of the media campaign to Luke Kuechly. But man, what a great player he is. Followed up by Derek Johnson and Gerard Mayo. Not a lot of speed in Mayo. I think it. All joking aside, it's Patrick Willis, man. And the fact that you got Navarro Bowman as the second one, at the risk of you rambling on for 85 minutes talking about the Niner linebackers and, whatever. We're going to move through that one. But, yeah, the Niner linebackers are just absolute monsters when it comes to Madden. Let's talk about outside linebackers. It's a little bit more of a competitive list. Another 49er jumps in there, and Aldon Smith, second to only Von Miller as far as overall rating goes. Actually, they're tied in overall, although I think Von's probably the more versatile player as far as backing up into coverage. Aldon Smith is the better pass rusher. Then Justin Houston, Levante David, and Robert Mathis. I don't know if I like that Mathis pick, but we're going to look at Von Miller and Aldon Smith. It's kind of a pick your poison with those two guys. Von Miller, man. He's a handful. He's a handful. I got the good fortune of playing the Broncos a couple of times a year, and man, you talk about accountability to a player, especially when they had Elvis Dumervil also lining up on the defensive line there. What do you think? I know who you're going to pick as far as your favorite goes, but give me a good, honest NFL comparison, Madden perspective between these two players, Von Miller and Aldon Smith.
I think you kind of summed it up when you said that Von Miller's a little bit more versatile. Aldon Smith is a little bit better at the one thing that he does. It's kind of 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. And you talked about playing against the Broncos twice a year last year. It must have hurt even more so when I let go of Aldon Smith and he was picked up by the Broncos. So they had Von Miller and Aldon Smith on either side. Personally, obviously, for my own bias reasons, I like Aldon Smith because he's pretty much unblockable, and that makes him great in the pass rush. It makes him great in the run game, and when I'm just blitzing him every down, I don't need him to drop back into coverage. For myself personally, for my own strategic purposes, I feel like dropping him back in coverage is taken away from what he does best anyways. But that's my own personal play style. Someone else running the Broncos might like Von Miller's versatility a little bit more. The best thing that I can say is when I lost Aldon Smith in last year's game, that was a huge blow to my defense that I didn't necessarily see coming when I didn't have that side of the line locked down anymore on that pass rush and run support that was coming from him. So either way, with either one of those two, myself and the Broncos are going to have good advantages in the pass rush.
To have a good pass rush, you got to have a good secondary because you got to be able to cover long enough for those guys to get free, to shed those blockers, to penetrate into the backfield, and so you got to maintain coverage. The same argument could also be said that you got to have a good pass rush in order to have a good secondary because it forces throws a lot quicker than the quarterbacks would like. But myself, I kind of tend to believe, I'm a Raider fan. I believe that if you cover long enough, you can rush 4 guys and you can generate a pass rush. That was Al's theory forever, and I think that while the NFL has changed, it still holds true that you don't have to blitz to create pressure if you can cover long enough. And Richard Sherman is our cover athlete, to your chagrin, but he got his 99, followed up by Darrelle Revis. Yes, Darrell. Joe Hayden, Patrick Peterson, and Vontae Davis. So 99, 97, 95, 93, 92. Vontae Davis, a little bit of a surprise there in the 5th spot, but I think the top 4 guys, very, very equal as far as talents go. Sherman, not so fast, but he makes up for it with just amazing coverages. I think if I had to have my pick, I like Joe Hayden and Patrick Peterson. I know that you got different feelings about Patrick Peterson, especially since he plays in the Niners division. But, both those guys are just amazing, and they're amazingly fast. Revis used to be the top dog. Remember? Actually, it was him and Nnamdi. And I used to love watching them go back and forth, watching Nnamdi Asomugha, not Eagle Asomugha, but Raider Asomugha, and Darrelle Revis going back and forth of who's the best cornerback in the game. One would have a 99. One would have a 98. They'd both be 99s. They'd both be 98. They would go back and forth and back and forth. And Nnamdi was just absolutely amazing. And it was a sad day when he left Oakland for Philadelphia. But all that said, Richard Sherman's up there. Hard to argue that. You mentioned clutch. There's nobody more clutch than that guy. There's nobody that shows up more on the big stage right now in the NFL than that guy. Nobody backs up their talk more than that guy. He's it. They play in there's a phenomenal defense there in Seattle. Ken could go back to the argument. Is it the pass rush or is it the secondary? I don't know, because they do both pretty darn good. So it's hard to argue with Sherman getting to the top of that list. But for my Madden preferences, wouldn't be my first choice because I like the speed of Hayden and Peterson better. But again, hard to argue with Sherman getting his 99.
All this Richard Sherman talk is hurting me more than Josh Norman could ever dream of doing. But it's true. I mean, whether it's real life or whether it's Madden, Richard Sherman has been the bane of my existence as a football fan. And no cornerback has shut down my offense quite like Richard Sherman has in Madden terms. No cornerback has ruined my hopes as an NFL football fan quite more than Richard Sherman has. So with him being the highest rated cornerback, him being in my division, him being the Madden covered guy, all of it is kind of hurting my feelings. But like you said, he has the talk and he backs it up. And I know that Salty made a joke on the Facebook page about if I brought up NFL 2K one more time, he was going to make me run the Seahawks. All I got to say is I already talk enough junk as it is. Do you really want to combine me with a virtual Richard Sherman? So.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was done.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Alan, are you there?
I'm here.
Alan.
Yes, sir.
Over there, I know about your kind. You're like the independent network news on Channel 9.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to safeties. Free safeties, as a matter of fact, and we got Jarius Byrd at the top of the list. Earl Thomas, Devin McCourty, who's my pick for the best free safety in the game. Eric Weddle, Chargers, man. And Charles Woodson. Gosh, I love C-Dub. Right here. This is how real it is, Alan. This isn't even a throwback. You know, it's a sad day when you get old enough to wear the jerseys you bought the first time turn into throwbacks. My Puma jersey. It's a Puma, for crying out loud. Charles Woodson. Anyways, I love Charles Woodson, but he's not in it. It's such a distant fifth. You got the first four guys are in the mid-90s. Charles Woodson's in 86. He's great in his coverages. He's slow. I mean, it stinks. He'd be a good linebacker. You know what I mean? But anyways, Jarius Byrd, Earl Thomas, Devin McCourty, and Eric Weddle. I think for my money, it's Devin McCourty. He's got the speed and the coverages and just the, I don't know, it's not awareness on defense, but he's just one of those kind of players that in Madden and in real life gets himself in position to make plays. I like Devin McCourty a lot. I like his brother Jason, who plays cornerback for the Titans. So for my pick, I'm picking Devin McCourty. Doesn't have like the hit power that an Earl Thomas does. But Jarius Byrd, I don't know, what is it with Jarius Byrd? I mean, is it because he played in Buffalo and now he's with New Orleans? I mean, what is it about that guy that always pushes him to the top of the list and has him so well respected as a player and as a Madden player? Because to me, I don't see it. Again, if I'm picking a free safety, if I'm building a team, I'm picking Devin McCourty.
Well, I think when it comes to safeties, that's the one spot where speed doesn't matter as much. I got Charles Woodson from you last year. He led the league in interceptions. And you have Jarius Byrd up here with a 99 zone coverage. That's what you need out of a free safety. You don't need strong speed. You don't need strong man coverage. You need someone who can play center field out there and play over the top and help out when the cornerback gets beat. You don't need the speed as much from a free safety as you do in cornerbacks and other positions. It's the one position where I feel like speed isn't as necessary.
Well, one where the Raiders certainly have it. It's debatable whether it's necessary or not. We're going to move on to strong safety. I can't believe Tyvon Branch didn't crack the top 5. He historically does. He's one of the. I guess it was because he got injured last year and doesn't have the film to really generate big attributes this year. But Cam Chancellor and Troy Polamalu. Polamalu's kind of lost a step. Pittsburgh hasn't been that great, so I was a little bit surprised to see him at the top of the list. Not surprised at all to see Cam Chancellor up there. I mean, he's just talk about a guy that can hit, and as big as he is, he's a big, strong safety, man. So anyways, and then you got T.J. Ward for the Denver Broncos, Eric Berry for the Chiefs. Eric Berry's a great player out of UT. He's really put down some good film, and I think that he's one of the he's certainly not underrated, but maybe from a Madden perspective he could be. And then Rashad Jones from the Miami Dolphins. But Cam Chancellor, Troy Polamalu, no surprise there. As 1 and 2, again, I don't expect you to have rave reviews of somebody from the LOB, but, I mean, is there anybody you can think of that could compete with Cam Chancellor for as far as the best strong safety from a Madden perspective?
Probably not. I mean, he's up there in real life, and, I mean, he's got what you need in a Madden strong safety. I mean, as the strong safety, at least in the way that I run them, they don't need the coverage quite as much. So having the hit power and stuff makes them an asset. Now there's a lot of strategies that'll play 2 tops and 2 over the top and stuff like that, where the coverage matters a little bit more. But strong safety, you want someone who can get to the guy and hit him and make him not hold on to the football or come up in run coverage. So I really don't have any disagreements with any of these ratings here.
All right, last but not least, we have special teams, and they got a few players listed here, top kickers and punters: Brandon Fields, Matt Prater, Andy Lee, Robbie Gould, Justin Tucker. We don't need to get too far in the weeds on kickers. I mean, the game mechanics are changing this year. Historically, if you had a guy like Zerline, or you had a Sebastian Janikowski, or you had somebody that had a big kick power, you just line up, you get your arrows in the right spot, and you let her fly. And like you used to joke to me about the Raiders, all I got to do is get to the shield and I can kick a field goal because of Janikowski's kick power. And so I don't know if that's going to be true this year or not. There's a lot more timing involved. There's a new game mechanic that's coming, so that's going to be one of those things that we'll see. Is this going to go the way of the vision cone, or is this going to be a new mechanic? I think it's necessary. I think it's kind of like free throws in an NBA game, right? You can't just have the hoop going up or the circle going up and the halo going up and down or up around the hoop and try to time it. You have to have something more. There has to be an additional gameplay dynamic in there to make it challenging, so you can't just fall back on the fact that my guy can kick it 6 yards or whatever. So, but that said, punters, I don't know what you can do there. Marquette King for the Raiders has got a big kick power. Andy Lee's got a big kick power. We always used to joke that it was like, okay, the Raiders and Niners have the 2 best punters in the league because we had Shane Leckler and you had Andy Lee. And, now it's Marquette King has followed that up. And none better in a year that Raid guy has been inducted into the Hall of Fame that we have a kicker with like a 98 kick power back there as a punter. But that said, aside from the new game mechanic and the potential that brings, I'm not sure if this really means much anything,
I definitely am happy to see anything that changes the mechanic so that it's more than just kick power, because that was a problem where you had your high kick power kicker and you could kick a field goal from virtually anywhere on the field, and it got a little bit ridiculous at some points. Punting, I don't feel like punting necessarily needed a huge overhaul because, you're just going to kick it downfield. But I'm glad to see something changed in the kicking game, and I'll definitely be looking to see how that plays out.
You know that Vince Wilfork has 56 throw power and is the 4th highest throw power on the New England Patriots?
Well, let's get him on the depth chart.
Pretty cool. I printed off some interesting stats, but we're starting to run low on time. So aside from that one, who wants to have Vince Wilfork as their quarterback anyways? All right. Let's move
his accuracy this year.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah. Can he throw that deep out route 20 yards downfield? Let's move on to some West 1 specific rule changes and then we are going to wrap it up. Alan, here's a few things that have changed. Not anything major, but we did make some tweaks this year. I'm going to kind of go over a couple of things. Of course, always our league rules lead off with this. Either you get it or you're gone. And, you know, Salty has always been very patient. He's a great commissioner for our league. At sometimes I always felt that he was too nice. He was too generous. I think that with exterior things going on, it's going to tighten up a little bit some of the leniency that he gives. So I would encourage everybody listening. You either get it or you're gone. Please, just follow the rules, man. Just keep it simple. Follow the dang rules. They're all there for a reason. They're all well thought out. This isn't stuff that we've just come up with off the top of our head. This is over, you know, not quite a few years, but it's like a fourth or fifth year. I guess we've been doing this now. Everything has gotten to where it is for a reason. So we just ask that you respect it and just follow the rules. It keeps it so much easier for us. If you do have a complaint, please address it to myself, or you can address it with Salty. Do it privately. Please don't blast on the Facebook page and copy the planet on it. Just shoot us a text, shoot us a Facebook message privately so we can address it. And I promise you, we will always have an ear open and address any concern.
Well, and I think that's been the best thing about this league in my time in it is, you know, granted, I agree with most of the rules anyways, but when I don't, it's just as simple as, hey, here's an idea that I have on how I think it should work, and you and Salty and most everyone else in charge has been receptive to it. Doesn't mean that they agree, doesn't mean that they're going to implement it, but they'll at least take it into consideration and open up a discussion about it. So if you do have a problem with something, how the league works, like you said, just you know, shoot one of the commissioners a message or bring it up respectfully on the board on the Facebook page, and we'll have a nice conversation about it.
Yeah, and Salty, I'll give him credit. He's always more open to that stuff than I've ever been. I've always been like, whatever, just tell him how it's going to be. He's like, no, man, we got to listen to guys. We got to be willing to be open to input and really consider things and have a discussion about it instead of just ruling with that iron fist or whatever, you know. And so, anyways, he's very good about that. So, anyways, knowing that, guys, just please counter that with anything. Just try to keep it behind the scenes, and then, you know, if we need to bring it public or whatever we can. If somebody's blatantly cheating, obviously, here's the general rule of thumb. Here's what I've learned. Give it time. Don't text right after a game because you're emotional. Don't make a Facebook post right after a game because you're emotional. Let it simmer. Take it up the next day or the next morning. That's the bet. And I'm guilty of it too. This is not me pointing a finger here because Lord knows I've sent plenty of text messages about KMAT to Sonny, Salty immediately after the end of a game and been like, oh man, I can't believe this guy's cheating. He sucks and he blah, blah, blah. So we all do it. But if I could offer you up this, try to let it simmer, and then when you got a cool head, then reach out. And typically, your case about things will be a lot better received should you do that.
And we've lost some good owners because they didn't let it simmer.
Yes, absolutely, we have, and yeah, you know, I mean, it's whatever. Things transition. I think that not to get too far off in the weeds here, but at this point now, I love our league. I love our owners. I think we are healthier now from an ownership perspective than we ever have been, despite maybe you and Norman. But outside of that, I mean, it's pretty solid. Okay, let's get into it. Salty decided to change up some of the stats against the CPU. I thought this was a great idea. He didn't handcuff you too much, but he did back it down a little bit with the XP available to a guy that can throw up, 6 touchdown passes without eclipsing a yardage mark. I thought was a little bit of an unfair advantage, especially if for some reason you end up playing a division that has a lopsided amount of CPU games versus regular games. Say you got guys that go on vacation or whatever. Things happen. Life happens. So I thought the fact that he changed it up a little bit. Quarterbacks, 350 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's still a lot of yards. That's still a lot of touchdowns. I don't anticipate anybody having a problem with that, but keep it under those on your CPU games. Wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, fullbacks need to be under 150 yards and 4 touchdowns. Running backs, yards need to be under 150 and 4 touchdowns. Let me clarify something here. That doesn't mean that you can score 4 touchdowns running and 4 in the air with your freaking running back. you still got to maintain the overall touchdown mark, okay? So it's 4 touchdowns per player, receiving or rushing combined, okay? And then the yardage, again, 150 on both. This is not an unfair number. We should have very, very, very little CPU games going forward. So let me say that too. Not only do we have a great ownership base right now, but we have a waiting list. Should something happen, somebody move, something whatever, somebody gets deployed, who knows? Who knows what happens? We've had a myriad of things happen about why guys leave, but should that happen, we should have a replacement coming pretty quickly. So that the new CPU rules should not have much of an impact going forward. All right. No huddle offense. I think we kicked around maybe making some changes to this, and I think that this could be one of those topics that could be open for discussion with Salty. Post any ideas after the show to the Facebook page. We talked a little bit about it this past offseason, but we didn't implement anything right away. So right now, the no huddle offense, according to the rules, remains the same. You can only use a no huddle with 2 minutes left in the second and fourth quarter, or if you're down by 9 or more anytime in the fourth quarter, you can use it. Now, the reason we kicked it around is that we are fully aware of the way that NFL offenses are run nowadays, that there are numerous times where teams will call in 5 plays and they will audible the different plays at the line of scrimmage. Now, the reason that we didn't just settle in on that entirely was because you can so quickly change things at the line of scrimmage in Madden with hot routes and with audibles. Odd and Murphy. And I'm guilty of it too. I think a lot of us do that. A lot of us take advantage of that game mechanic. But that said, with the new game mechanic coming out where you can't necessarily do that, and I'm curious to see how much of that ability is hampered to where you can't just make 1,000 different calls at the line of scrimmage, maybe we back off of some of the restrictions on the no huddle. Because even though you may rush to the line of scrimmage, if you got to wait for a cadence and you got to wait for a guy to line up before you can make those changes to the offensive play that you're running, then maybe it's not going to be so easily exploited. So that, I think, is a good area of discussion. And again, if you guys got any feedback on that, you got any ideas on that, we probably won't be able to figure out how it's going to work until we get the game going, but throw them out there to us anyways. Nothing?
I think most of those sound, pretty good. I think I've been one of the proponents that is in favor of the no huddle offense, just because if I feel like someone strategically brought out something that I can exploit in a mismatch, I should be able to take advantage of that mistake that they made. That's strategic. But also, in the past, obviously I've been the main target of it. There have been criticisms on the advantages that the offense has had in terms of being able to design an entirely new play on the fly, and the defense never had chance to respond to that. I like the fact now that the defenses will have a chance to respond to that, because that was kind of an unfair advantage that defenses had. But I'm one of the proponents that we should be able to run the no huddle if that's how we want to run it. But we'll have that discussion on the Facebook page later. As far as the stats go, I agree that we shouldn't be able to just run up our stats and everything on the CPU. I know there have been problems. I've experienced it myself, and I know other players have too, where we hit those limits, whether it's overall scoring or quarterback passing yards or running back passing yards, and we still have a whole quarter of play to go, and we're just sitting on the ball, kneeling on it for a quarter. And, that kind of brings up a whole nother issue, but the idea behind it is sound. We don't need to be exploiting the CPU for running up our stats.
All right, next up we have the max contract issue. We, prior to Madden 25, had an issue where we had guys spreading out big-time dollars over 7-year contracts and really kind of depleting the free agent pool. When you look at the way that the NFL is run and the way that it's structured, there is always big-name free agents that hit the market every year. It's just a fact, okay? there are, whether it's sometimes it's Peyton. Who would have thought that Peyton Manning would ever have had the ability to go out there and hit the open market and to sign with another team? There are cases to where it happens. So we were getting none of that, and we had a very, very small free agent pool, and we had a disparity between in the economics of our game and the economics of the real life NFL. So in order to compensate for that, we decided to limit the length of the contracts the guys were able to give to their players. Okay, admittedly, we overswung a little bit. The pendulum went a little too far for last year, and we had a flood of guys hitting the open market. I know you lost Aldon Smith. I lost Terrell Pryor. I mean, there's a lot of different big-time players, and I don't remember all off the top of my head, but there was a lot of big-time free agents that helped hit the open market last year, way more so than we wanted to. So this year, season 1, you can offer up a max contract of 6 years in the first season. Second season, 5 years. Seasons 3 through 5, we're up to 4. Okay, so you guys can sign those players pretty long term, especially that first year of 6 years. I mean, that's a pretty lengthy contract. And then to even kick it to another gear, we're going to give you 4 players for the whole Madden year. Okay, so the whole length of the game, not a season, but the length of the game. 4 players that you can sign to max deals. So 7 years, max money. You lock them up. You don't kill your salary cap, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Okay, so there's a lot of flexibility there, but that still hopefully will generate some movement in free agency. I think that may be the best balance that we found. Please post those players to pro boards, just like you would post a captain. Last year in the Xbox One League, I did it with Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson. Those were 2 guys that I used max contracts on, and so I posted up on there and was able to get that approved. So please post your max contract guys out there. Okay, so that's free agency. That's going to find our balance there. When it comes to trades, that's it. 3 transactions for 3 seasons. Pretty simple to remember. You get 3 for the first 3. After that, it's wide open. Season 4 and 5, go nuts. Those first 3 seasons, you get 3 transactions. So make them count. We got the trade committee is in place. All the same guys are back up and up for it. And we're thankful for them and their time to invest in it. So post that stuff up. The trade committee will review it. I forget what the time frame was on it. It was like 48 hours or something like that. Usually it's a lot faster than that. All of our guys on it are pretty quick. Each one of us has a different area of responsibility, whether that be the max contract of the deal, as far as the validity of the contract, does it fit within the rules? Does the money make sense? Does it make overall football sense? That kind of stuff. So get that stuff up there. Guys, remember this, man. First and foremost, the salary cap and the penalty really is going to make the decision. Don't post up stuff, Allen. Okay? Don't make these goofy posts about trading for Matt Ryan for a 5th-round pick and having the Falcons take a $52 million hit on their salary cap. It's not going to happen. Okay? So just keep that in mind, guys, that the big penalties, we're totally going to avoid that. It's gotten our league into trouble a couple of times in the past. We learned our lesson quick, and we're going to be sticky on that stuff. So if it's got major cap penalties, we've toyed around with the idea in the past of having to say, well, all right, well, each team can have $10 million. Or if it's a guy that's been with us a long time, he could have up to $14 million, whatever. There's nothing firm in place there. Just use common sense. Just use common sense. We want to give you guys the ability to manage your team and never take that away, because that wouldn't be any fun. You know what I mean? If we had to police each team, that would be fun. We want to give you enough creativity and lateral movement ability to build the team that you want to build. But please don't ding up your team with big-time cap penalties, because it won't get approved. All right, captain's list. I think most of the guys have gotten on those already. 1 offensive, 1 defensive player. After that, you can have a combination of players totaling 4. You are not allowed to have an offensive lineman on your captain's list. That's pretty self-explanatory. There will be a free agent draft before season 1. We talked about that free agency draft. There will be no sign-in trades happening. If you sign a free agent, he's yours until the next following preseason. So you can't sign a guy and then trade him away. All complaints, again, talk to me and Salty about it. West One scheduling 2 times a week, Wednesday and Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern. And Alan, that brings us to the end of West One Radio, right at the midnight mark here in beautiful Middle Tennessee. What say you? Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Most of these rules look great. It's how we've been running for the past couple of years, just slight evolutions of those. And I look forward to beating Josh Norman, K-Matt, and Salty all year this year.
Well, thanks for joining me here on West One Radio. I got to admit, it's getting a little tricky for me to remember that, but I look forward to our league. Thank you guys for listening. For those guys that have tuned in, thank you guys for our call-ins. Appreciate Josh Norman and Salty joining us here on the show. Man, gosh, I can't wait to get this thing going. We are so close, guys, and we are going to have more shows, more programming coming. The faster and more furious, we'll start doing divisional spotlights. We'll start doing call-ins and rundowns of the week to week. Look forward to getting back full bore here on West One Radio. So thanks again for tuning in. For Alan and myself, Murph the Raider Gamer, this has been West One Radio.